If time reversed to the year 1300, you would find yourself standing inside what may have been the filthiest major city humans ever built, a city of nearly 100,000 people, without sewers, without garbage collection, without clean drinking water. Every day, tons of waste, human, animal, and industrial, were dumped directly into the streets. Pigs wandered freely through alleyways. The River Thames, the city's lifeline, doubled as its open sewer, and the smell, according to one medieval writer, was so overpowering that travelers could detect London miles before seeing it. Yet people still crowded inside its walls: merchants, craftsmen, priests, kings. Because this city, filthy as it was also becoming the beating heart of medieval England. Tonight we're stepping inside medieval London. Not the romantic version with castles and knights, but the real one. The mud, the noise, the sickness, and the strange systems people built just to survive. It's early morning. A traveler approaches London from the countryside. The first thing they notice isn't the city walls. It's the smell, a thick mix of smoke, manure, rot, and river mud drifting through the air. Medieval cities rarely smelled pleasant, but London was something else entirely. By the late 1200s, London had exploded in population. Rural migrants arrived daily looking for work. Traders flooded in from Europe. Ships unloaded cargo from across the known world. Inside the city walls, space was limited, so buildings rose higher and closer together. Wooden houses leaned over narrow streets like crooked teeth. Some were only 2 or 3 feet apart at the top floors. Sunlight struggled to reach the ground. Rainwater didn't drain properly, and waste had nowhere to go. Now imagine stepping through one of the city gates. A stream of carts enters beside you. Barrels, livestock, sacks of grain, but also barrels filled with something far less pleasant. Human waste collected overnight from homes across the city. This was London's daily routine. The streets of medieval London were rarely paved. Most were packed dirt. In wet weather, they turned into thick brown sludge. And that sludge was not just mud. Horses dominated transportation. Thousands lived inside the city. Each horse produced around 20 pounds of manure per day. Add pigs, add chickens, add dogs, add human wastes thrown from upper floors. Suddenly the streets became a constantly shifting mixture of organic waste. City authorities attempted rules. Residents were supposed to shout "God as low," meaning watch out for water before dumping waste from windows, but enforcement was inconsistent. And sometimes people didn't bother warning anyone at all. Travelers often wore high wooden clogs called pattens to keep their feet above the sludge. Even so, slipping into street waste was common. One medieval court record describes a merchant who sued after falling into a pile of dung outside a neighbor's store. The neighbor argued the pile belonged to someone else. In medieval London, responsibility for waste was complicated. Now follow the street downhill. Eventually everything leads to the same place, the River Thames. To medieval Londoners, the Thames was everything: water supply, transportation routes, economic engine, but it was also the city's primary dumping ground. Household waste went there. Butchers dumped animal remains. Leather tanners emptied vats of chemicals and blood. Dyers released colored waste from textile production. Even bodies occasionally appeared in the river. By the 1300s, sections of the Thames inside the city had become dangerously polluted, yet people still collected drinking water from it, because alternatives were limited. Some households used wells. Others bought water from water carriers who sold it by the bucket. But many simply used the river, which meant the same water used for drinking might also contain the runoff from slaughterhouses just upstream. Medieval writers complained constantly. One city official described the Thames as being corrupted by filth beyond endurance. Still, the dumping continued. London depended on the river too much to stop. Walk toward Eastship, one of medieval London's busiest markets. Here, butchers worked daily preparing meat for the growing population. The work was loud, messy, and constant. Animals were slaughtered right inside the city. Blood flowed along channels cut into the ground. Offal organs and scraps not used for food was often tossed nearby or sent into the river. City records show officials repeatedly complaining about the smell. At times, authorities attempted regulations. Butchers were told to dispose of waste outside the city walls. Some complied. Others didn't. Transporting heavy animal remains was expensive. Dumping them nearby was easier. In warm weather, the consequences were immediate. Flies gathered, rot spread quickly, and the surrounding neighborhoods filled with an unmistakable odor. Yet the butchers remained, because London needed meat, and moving food production far from the city wasn't practical yet. Another district tells an even harsher story. The tannery's leather production was essential in medieval life. Shoes, saddles, belts, armor straps, bookbindings, everything required leather. But tanning hides was one of the dirtiest industries imaginable. Animal skins first had to be soaked, then scraped, then treated with mixtures that included lime, animal fats, and even fermented urine. Yes, urine. The ammonia inside it helped break down hair and tissue. Workers stood over vats for hours, stirring these mixtures. The smell could carry through entire neighborhoods. For this reason, tanneries were usually pushed toward the edges of cities. But as London expanded, the city grew around them. Soon entire districts smelled permanently of the tanning trade. To medieval residents, this odor meant industry. To visitors, it meant something far worse. Inside homes, the sanitation problem took a different form. Most houses had private simple toilets built above pits. These pits filled quickly, and someone had to empty them. Enter the night soil men. Their job was to collect human waste from across the city. They worked after dark. Not because the work was illegal, but because the smell was easier to manage when fewer people were outside. Using buckets and carts, they emptied cesspits and transported the waste beyond city walls. There it was sometimes used as fertilizer on farms, but the system struggled to keep up with London's growing population. Some pits overflowed, others leaked into nearby wells, and occasionally workers dumped waste illegally to save time. City authorities issued fines when they caught offenders, but enforcement was uneven. London was growing faster than its sanitation systems. Modern cities separate humans from livestock. Medieval London did not. Animals were everywhere. Pigs roamed freely through streets eating scraps. They acted as a kind of informal garbage disposal, but they also spread waste further across the city. Chickens wandered markets, cows were sometimes driven through narrow roads toward slaughter, dogs scavenged, and horses dominated transportation. Together, they produced enormous amounts of manure every single day. One estimate suggests medieval London generated thousands of tons of animal waste annually without organized removal. Most of it simply stayed where it landed. Rain washed some away, but much remained, blending into the streets themselves. The filth created another danger. Medieval London was built mostly from wood and thatch. Buildings were tightly packed, waste piled in corners, and open flames were everywhere. Cooking fires, smithing forges, candles. When fires started, they spread quickly. City leaders feared that piles of garbage and debris could fuel catastrophic blazes. Some regulations tried to limit waste accumulation, but enforcement was difficult. The population kept growing, and so did the risks. In 1348, something else entered London: the Black Death. Historians still debate the exact mechanisms of its spread, but the conditions of medieval cities played a significant role. Crowded housing, poor sanitation, rodents attracted by waste, all created environments where disease could move rapidly through populations. London was no exception. Within months, thousands were dead. Churchyards filled. Emergency burial pits were dug. The city's population collapsed. Some estimates suggest nearly half of London's residents died within a few years. It was one of the darkest chapters in the city's history. And yet, something unexpected followed. After the plague, labor became scarce. Workers suddenly had more bargaining power. Cities across Europe, including London, began slowly rethinking urban organization. Sanitation rules became stricter. Some industries moved further from residential districts. City officials increased fines for dumping waste in streets. Gradually, urban planning evolved, not overnight, but step by step. Over centuries, London introduced paved roads, drainage systems, and eventually modern sewer networks. Many of the systems we take for granted today: public sanitation, regulated waste disposal, water infrastructure emerged partly because medieval cities had shown what happened without them. Despite the filth, medieval London kept growing. Why? Opportunity. Cities concentrated trade, jobs, and power. A craftsman could earn more in London than in a village. Merchants could access international markets. Scholars could find patrons. Life expectancy might not improve much, but economic chances often did. So people accepted the risks and the smells, because cities represented something powerful. Possibility. Today, millions walk through London every day. Clean water flows from taps. Waste disappears through underground sewer systems. The Thames, once used as an open drain, is now far cleaner than it was centuries ago. But beneath modern streets lies the memory of another city. One of mud, smoke, animals, and survival. Medieval London may have been one of the filthiest cities in history, yet it also became one of the foundations of the modern world, because sometimes progress begins in places that were never meant to work.